Welcome to the DevReady Podcast. Today I have Mick joining me on the podcast. Welcome, Mick.
Hey, thanks for having me, Anthony.
It's a pleasure to have you on. What I'll let you introduce yourself so I don't bodge anything up.
Yeah, we just talked about the naming, and I said you're Greek and I'm Ukrainian, so we should be able to say it, but yeah, it's all the pronunciations are a little bit different. But to make it easier, my name is Mykhaylo Shaforostov, but everybody calls me Mick. I'm very happy to be on your podcast. A little bit about myself. I was born in Ukraine, raised in Italy, educated in Canada, started my career in the United States, and through Singapore I came here to Australia. So one could say that I've kind of seen it all, been everywhere, and done a bit of everything.
It's like you're trying to cross every country off the map almost.
Yeah, now with a little toddler in the family, I think we're parked here for a little while.
Yeah, it probably would make it a little bit harder to have a toddler driving around and, introduces new challenges, I'd say.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So, you need to let us know a little bit about your background, because I know you're in a startup now, but you have had a long career before that, and then probably just dive into that journey a little bit.
Yeah, look, I've been pretty fortunate. I'd say that with a lot of humility, in that I was given some really amazing opportunities. I used to work for a company called Nortel Networks. I started there as a bit of an intern. They gave me a full-time job, and it was really cool. I got to play with some really cool technologies. The company, as everybody probably knows today, is bankrupt and is sold to pieces, but I have nothing to do with it, I swear. But it was a really good kind of experience to understand, the art of development and, the art of, the selling and products, which Nortel, by the way, was really bad at. And, it was an interesting time because this was when I discovered the technology and pre-sales area, which to me was not something I knew about, right? I mean, when you go to kindergarten, they say, who do you want to be when you grow up? It's like a fireman, a doctor, a lawyer. Nobody says sales engineer. So by a bit of luck, I encountered this really cool career, and that's when I started with a company called AppDynamics, moved to New York, and really started understanding the art of pre-sales, which is a role in which you get to work with a lot of technology, but at the same time, you're part of the sales organization and you talk a lot to customers. So through that, I was able to progress through the ranks, went from sales engineering to sales engineering manager to director when I moved to Singapore, running all of Asia Pacific. And throughout every part of those experiences, I've learned something new. I made a lot of mistakes, and I banged my head against the wall trying to figure out what I'm doing. And look, 10 plus years later of running pre-sales engineering companies at AppDynamics, which then got acquired by Cisco, and then Relic, I've learned a ton, and I really love that career path. But something was, ticking inside me and was telling me that after all this experience worldwide, and after building amazing teams, and after working with observability, which is the technology that's behind really AppDynamics and New Relic and many companies like them, I got to to play with so many different technology types, and I was like, I'm hungry to go and help customers and in some of those technologies. And I missed out on the .com bubble, I missed out on the crypto bubble, so I was like, I gotta jump in on the AI bubble. So I left my cushy director job, and I was like, I gotta give it a shot and see, at least, mark it off my list of things that I tried, and have no regrets when I'm 50. And my daughter asked me, tell me about your career.
So you work for some large enterprises, some big names there. From there, I'm sure you've got plenty of learnings that you've taken and brought into your own startup. Would that be a lot of structure and process and procedure?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So when we started at AppDynamics, you have to realize that AppDynamics was kind of a startup of its own. I think I was employee 303, which is a lot, but in the New York office where I was, we're like 5. Right?
Okay.
And the reality is, at the time, we didn't really know what we're doing. We didn't have a sales process. It was kind of like, go talk to as many customers you can. Here's a sales deck. Just go and do it, It wasn't until some really strong leadership came along that came from the parametrics world, the BMC, really structured, well-defined sales process people, that we started doing things like MedPick, discovery calls, demos, all the really structured things. But I do remember walking into a large bank, and we just fumbled it. We just kind of played by ear, did funny analogies, and and they laughed us out of the room. They said, look, come back to us when you're all grown up. And that was a pretty good reminder that, process is not there for process sake. It's really a structure to give you repeatability, because what we're doing was not repeatable. So I've seen kind of the one side of it when you're just kind of like throwing punches to, the working for a post-IPO kind of company like a Relic, where, having that process or structure really allows you to be consistent. And consistency is what wins deals, if I'm honest.
Yeah, consistency is it's key in everything, really.
Yeah.
Having process and then making sure they're followed. That's probably the other thing.
But actually, interesting that you said, I forgot to mention, but now that I'm in a startup, you kind of have to have the process in mind, or kind of like the end game that, hey, you are going to have a sales deck. You are going to do a lot of these structures, but you have to afford yourself some liberties, because in the startup world, the reality is there's a lot of undefined, right? There's a lot more discovery than there is selling. There's a lot more, hey, maybe we need to try to figure out something else, or maybe the persona is completely different. So I would say it's really helped me knowing what we need to expect when we're scaling, from Series A to Series B. I know what's coming, but initially be nimble enough and creative enough and make a few like different trial and errors. It's really paramount when you're starting something up, because you're bound to make mistakes even if you have the best structure.
Yeah, mistakes are always there. As long as you can learn from them and take the right lessons from them, then that's key. But being able to pivot to things that are occurring is more important, I think, as a startup than having a rigid process that you don't deviate from.
Yeah, but you will need that when you scale.
Yes.
But as you know, pre-seed and seed environment is a little bit chaotic, and it took me a little while to embrace it. But after Pivot 9, I think I've embraced it. I've embraced the chaos.
9 pivots. Is that in the current startup?
Correct. Yeah. 9 pivots, 3 co-founders, 6 months. I feel like it felt like 2 years. You gotta be nimble. And I think we talked about this a bit earlier. One of the things that I've learned is like, I thought I was special. And man, look, I think to a certain extent, we all feel a bit special, right? It's kind of the human nature. And I didn't mean with a big ego. I was like, well, look, I've got all this really great experience in the corporate world. I have this massive go-to-market network with so many great people, customers, and all that. It's like building a startup must be really easy, right? And I got smashed in the face with humility, realizing that, hey, look, you're on your own. Your network is great. You're probably it's gonna help you make some initial meetings and all, but it's not a guarantee of success. And after you try, fail, you think, well, it's not gonna happen to me. And then when it does, there is a moment in time when you're kind of picking yourself up, going like, okay, how far do I push it?
Yeah. How much do you commit?
Yeah.
So earlier you mentioned that you sort of missed the .com and then the crypto. You were working in the corporate environment at that time, but were you thinking or toying with the idea of having startups as that was happening? Or is it something after the fact you're like, all right, there was this big bubble, I should have done something then?
Yeah, look, .com, I now beat myself up a little bit. I mean, everyone does. Like any couch, observer will tell you that, hey, I came up with this idea many years ago, blah, blah, blah. I did the same thing. I had this great idea to build like single sign-on before Okta was a big deal. And it was in Canada. I went to a bunch of, VCs, and they kind of laughed me out the room. And I was buying them drinks, coffees, dinners, trying to get, I didn't know what I was doing, let's be honest. And they kind of said to me, look, if you want to be successful in this business, your idea is worthless. You've got to have a good network, a good execution plan, and honestly, a little bit of swagger, which I really did not have at the time. And so, the .com bubble came back, and I always kind of beat myself up with that one, because then you see these companies rising and shining and all that. But I realized that even if I did start it, I didn't have that right mojo, swagger, and also kind of like experience to pull it off. And so I would have still failed against like the bigs like Auth0 and Okta. So fast forward to, I was in the corporate world, I was doing really well for myself, and then you get a little bit of that taste of success in an organization. And then, the crypto kind of bubble comes along. I'm like, I really love this technology. I didn't really invest, and I actually lost money on that. So don't think that I was like, oh, this is going to be really great. Like I said, I missed both bubbles, right? Yep. But I thought, oh, so many cool technologies that could be built there. But at this point in time, I already have a pretty good career in leadership, and I was feeling cushy in my role. I was given a lot of really cool opportunities to travel, to do cool things. So I was like, if this kind of goes sideways, maybe I'll do it. But in the back of my head, there's always this, something that's kind of like itching me, going like, I see all these great companies being built by people who have even more humbling beginnings than me. Some I know, I've seen some amazing people coming from India to America, trying to get a green card, building amazing businesses. And, I kind of thought to myself, like, I could do it too. I should at least give it a try, or at least, try it before I stopped really wanting to, hustle as much as I do now. Yep. And give it a shot. So there's always a reason why not to do something. I think is what I'm saying here, is that whether it's some outside forces telling you not to do it, so surround yourself with great people that tell you to do something really great, or you find yourself in a cushy job where taking that leap is a pretty big monetary commitment. My opportunity cost by trying this is much bigger than a year's worth of salary. Right. Yeah. So it's in the back of my mind, certain days, but I'm still kind of excited and motivated and keen to try it.
Yeah. So that's probably part of what drives you then to keep going, is you've had that experience in corporate, you've had that success, you've had ideas that if you had executed well would have taken you in a completely different direction. And then this is sort of that third wave for you, then, that you're like, all right, this is the last one that if I don't take it, then there might not be another one.
No, I'm sure there's going to be other ones. I'm pretty excited about, not the metaverse, because I think that's really ridiculous, but, augmented reality, I think, is going to be a pretty big deal. I think there's going to be some other interesting technologies that are going to fundamentally change the way we interact. So I'm actually kind of excited about the next wave as well, but I thought to myself, this is one that I can, first off, I understand, I've been working in technology for quite a bit. I'm not saying that I'm an AI expert by any means, but it is an exciting area, and it feels like a first step of many, many companies out of this will come out and build some interesting businesses. So I just want to be part of the revolution, if you will, this time around. And again, you kind of see what other people are doing, and you just get excited. It's like, you want to be part of this. And the corporate world will always be there. I'm not saying that I've got job offers left, right, and center right now. It is a bit humbling from that perspective as well. Australian market is not exactly the largest in the world. So my jobs are usually when, people retire. But the reality is, when you work for a big company, you have some amazing advantages. Well, one of the biggest advantages, if you have a lane, whether it's your leadership lane, whether it's, the people you hire lane, whether it's the sphere of influence that you have is fairly well defined, which gives you a bit of safety. You know what you need to do day in, day out. You have KPIs, you've got objectives, and you've got goals, which is sometimes actually really good, right? I sometimes wake up in the morning, I'm like, I've got 20 things I need to accomplish, right? And I don't know which one is going to really make this company into something useful, or, I just have to get a whole bunch of this stuff done. And also, at any point in time, we could change the company direction. And that is a little bit scary. I sometimes wake up, go like, I now respect and understand what the corporate world. It was really nice not to have to worry about all these other big decisions that will make either make the company successful or most likely fail it, right? But the job is going to be still there. I gotta, believe that, my skill and my experience is not gonna just die over a year of trying something different. But I do wake up every morning and I'm doing something completely different. My fate is in my hands, and I'm working with an amazing co-founder that picks me up every day when I'm down. So it's an amazing experience and feeling. So I don't feel as lonely or as worried as I was, in any other situation.
Yeah, you're not a little cog in a big machine anymore.
Yeah.
You're driving the machine and winding it up every day. It's very different, for a lack of a poor analogy there.
Yeah. But again, there is. I now appreciate more the corporate world than I did before.
Yep,
the safety and the swim lanes are good sometimes.
Yeah, so that's something I've never experienced. So we started Area and Technologies while I was in my final year of uni. So my only experience before that was working at a summer internship for programming at a specialist education center in Victoria, where we built software for students. And then I had, I think it was 9 years experience at Coles, the supermarket.
Oh, wow.
And so I've had no corporate experience except for what we do. What we're doing is not corporate anyway, but yeah, I've had no corporate experience. So I don't have that appreciation that you have. To me, I just see a lot of red tape and bureaucracy that slows down decisions when we're working with big corporates.
Yeah,
And I'm sure
yeah.
that's a big part of it, but that's just due to having the layers of management that have to come in when you get to a business of that size. I understand why. It is annoying. But yeah, and you've now stepped out completely and can see, all right, when we do get to scale, you know why you need to have that and you know the direction you need to go to. But you have to just work on those 20 different targets today, and hopefully they're the right targets today. Tomorrow there might be 20 different ones again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you mentioned it's been 6 months since you started and you've had 3 co-founders.
Yep.
So there's got to be a story there.
Well, certainly me, not them, right? Look, I'll tell you this. I think when I talk to other founders and when I talk to or read anything, I've got a really cool book called Built With. I think where is it? Built With or something. It's really, really eye opening how Airbnb was started. A lot of other really cool companies. So. I digress for a moment, but every founder's story is going to be different. So no matter what you read and all that stuff, your story is going to be different. But one of the things that everybody will tell you is that the co-founder matching is probably the most important thing, which is why programs like Antler really focuses on founder matching, and everybody will beat into you that this is the most decision you make. And I'm like, I didn't think otherwise, right? But I come from a corporate world where I hired like 50 people in my whole career. It's not a big number, but every single one was handpicked. I've interviewed, I've reference checked, I built a program around how to hire them. So one could say that, and it was one of my super skills, hiring a really good team, and I was pretty proud of the teams that I built. So I thought that, hey, I've got this under control. I can figure this out really easily. And then I realized, I've made a lot of mistakes, in my personal life in picking partners. And hey, picking a co-founder is like picking a partner. It's a marriage, right?
Yep.
And for whatever crazy reason, even though I built the process for how to recruit and retain people, I've documented it, I've taught people how to, do interviews and all that. For whatever crazy reason, for hiring the co-founder, I just felt completely exposed. In that, it's such an important decision and you kind of have to have so much trust that you didn't have to put in before. Because before, I knew the role I was hiring. Is it a sales engineer? Is it a post-sales engineer? Is it a technical account manager? I know exactly the things that I'm looking for down to the character, requirements. And when I look at a co-founder and starting a business, I've never started a business. So I don't know what to look for in a co-founder. So my very first big mistakes is I was like, okay, I need a CTO. Well, it turns out I did not need a CTO. And I didn't know that until I went through the process, worked with this individual who is a really, really good individual, just so we're clear. He knew how to build, the infrastructure, the application space. He knew how to hire and manage people. And I was like, exactly, this is what I need, because I'm thinking I'm going to scale to Series A in about, 2 weeks, And the reality hit me pretty hard that actually that's not what I need. Number one, it's not going to be 2 weeks, it's going to be 2 years. And number two, I really needed somebody who can own the product. And that was my first kind of like, I did not understand what I need in a co-founder. And also you have to look at yourself. What kind of skill sets you bring to the table? Like I've got a really good go-to-market experience. So, all the kind of like the sales go-to-market stuff I've got. I'm pretty technical, which my current co-founder makes fun of me for, because he says like, oh, you're technical. So he sends me this like homework, which I can't do. And I'm like, all right, fine. I'm not that technical. But yeah, I was looking for someone that has some of overlap as well, but who could build the technology and who's actually excited to kind of come up with new ideas and creative ways to do it. And I realized that was a CPO. And that's when I first realized, okay, my first co-founder wasn't really a good fit. The second person was highly recommended. He's a superstar. He built a lot of products in AI. Like I really loved what he did. But that's when I learned, for example, that he was someone who's an executioner. Like you give him like a complex task, he's gonna build it, right? Mm-hmm. And it turns out, here's the problem. And this is what I first said. I'm at my 9th pivot.
Yep.
So I don't really, now I do, by the way, so everybody on the podcast knows, I think I now know what I'm building, but then again, talk to me in another 9 pivots, but I am pretty certain is what we need to build now, but up to the first 9, I didn't. And so I needed somebody on my team who was creative enough to challenge me on my thinking, but also come up with new ideas to maybe help us come to the right pivot. And so my second co-founder didn't have that. He was a great builder, but didn't have the creativity. So I actually went to market. I didn't know what to do. I went through the Android program, which was fantastic. I can't say any bad things because I've learned so much from our program, met so many amazing people. But now I've kind of realized what I wanted in a co-founder, and it's a unicorn. And where am I going to find this unicorn in my small little network? So I posted a LinkedIn job ad calling for CPO co-founder 50-50 split. And I had about 80 applications in 3 weeks.
Wow.
I interviewed 20 people, went down to a list of 3. And then I came back to what is it that I'm looking for? And one person just stood out. And this is the person I've selected with. We've been working together for 2 months. We've gone through about 3 or 4 pivots together. And I feel like, I don't know, I'd like to say that it's skill, because, I come from all this, experience, but there's got to be a bunch of luck, the right timing, finding the right person, also making sure that you vibe and you've got the right kind of interpersonal relationship. My goodness, finding a co-founder is harder than finding an idea. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, it's very important to have the right person there because you have to rely on them. I think that's probably the biggest difference you have when you're hiring in corporate is you're not relying on those people. Yeah. They're your subordinates, effectively. If you're at the director level, they're working for you or under you. So they just do their job, they get reviewed, they get assessed, and then if they're not doing the job, that seat gets replaced by someone else. The co-founder is, they need to do all the work that you brought them in for without you having to tell them to do it. They need to have the drive and the ability to just manage their own time, manage the tasks, and understand, all right, I'm relying on you, Mick, to do your part, you're relying on me to do my part, and we just run.
Precisely. And both of the co-founders that, people, I calling mistake is probably not correct, but both of those co-founders that I previously worked with, I would love for them to be in the company in the future because, to your point, like they bring the skill set for scaling. But and by the way, my current co-founder has amazing scale. Like the guy actually ran big teams and created amazing big products. So that's not to say that. But what's interesting is the initial stage is really finding somebody who is a complete partner to you, both getting shit done, but also creatively. What are we building? Why are we building it? Is this the right wedge? Is this the right market? Can we go and together co-sell it, right? The very first hurdle you're going to find, right, is talking to VCs. And I'm going to go and figure out, are you the right fit for what you're trying to accomplish? And it's, once you find that, once you see it, once you envision it, then all of a sudden the doors get wide open. And that's really, really amazing feeling.
Yeah, I think, from it sounds like the people you had they're not for the startup in the early stage. Once you get to that next level, they'll be perfect.
Exactly.
Once you know and you have a solid plan, then the guy that builds and follows the plan will be able to build it properly.
Correct.
The guy that can set up your infrastructure in the first place can help you scale for that next infrastructure. Then you've got your CPO now to help you drive the top level of the product. But you need the person that can wear all 3 of those hats at the same time now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was very lucky. I found that.
It is. That's a very important lesson, I think, for any startups or founders out there is if you are looking for a co-founder and you're non-technical, you need that technical one that can wear all the hats, not someone who's just a really good developer.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times, if you're looking for that really good developer, they're a good developer. They're not an architect. They're not a planner. They're not a product owner, product designer, no UI, UX. They're a good developer. That's a very specific skill set. It's like trying to build a house and you've only got a tiler.
Yeah.
He may know a little bit about the rest of the house, but he's good at his job. It's not going to give you everything. So it's really key. The biggest thing I found is you need to have someone that's like the opposite to you. So you can complement each other well. Because if I had another co-founder who was like me, I can imagine nothing would get done. Or half of the things wouldn't get done at all. And the other half is where you'd focus all your time, which is the things you like to do.
Yeah, but also interesting enough, there's a bit of an overlap that needs to happen as well. So, for example, I know with the co-founder who is like amazing, I can't say enough good things. What I really like about him is if I go and, for example, take a week off because I want to spend time with the family, and we've got an investor meeting or we've got a customer meeting, I know he can do the job. Yeah. And seems like a complete overlap, but that's not necessarily true. He can do the job, but he likes the
Other side.
the other side, the build the technology, the driving the ideas, the kind of making things happen. And at the same time, while I couldn't really develop or do what he does, if there is a technical conversation to be had to a certain level, I know he knows that he could take the week off and I could come in and have at least a high level conversation. So that gives us almost like a superpower as well. It means that we can separate our tasks quite effectively, but at the same time, we also have overlap. And we agree, for example, on some strategic decisions that we make because we both believe in, for example, really good analytics for business. We both believe that we need to sell to the business owners, and these are very important fundamental things in culture that if you've got alignment or overlap, then you're really kind of multiplying the effect of that. But at the same time, he does not want to do any of the VC outreach, sales, all that stuff, being shut down by customers and all that. He wants to build a great product. And I'm excited every time he comes up to me and is like, oh, I've built this really great thing. And it's completely different than what we both imagined, but it's better, and that just gives me an amazing energy as well.
And I think, that's the split we have with my business partner, Andrew. So I'm very technical. He's more client-focused, sales, and that side. So very early on, maybe a year in, we decided, all right, we're doing tasks, or the tasks are getting missed because we don't know who's meant to do them, or we're doing the same task when we shouldn't be. So we just made that split and all right, I'm a stronger programmer and I enjoy it, so I'll focus on that side and build the technical side. But I can jump in a call, I can host a podcast, I can jump on sales calls, I can write all the marketing content. He doesn't like writing the content. So you see my face everywhere. If there's a video or content, it's most 99% has been written by me.
I think that's the secret, right? It's not that they can't do it, and they can actually do it really well, but it may not be something that they are passionate about doing, right?
Yeah.
So
I think it's also knowing where to put your time. Your time. You only have so many hours in the day where I can write an article. For example, with article, I can write an article in one draft in an hour, and I'll be good to go with some minor edits. Yeah. He'll overthink the content, and it might take him 2 to 3 hours. That's not the best use of his time, even though he can do it.
Yeah.
So what's next?
I'll tell you a bit of a story. It's actually a pretty good one. So a little bit of a genesis story for your listeners. You have to understand, this is our 9th pivot, right? And we've gone through a lot of really great ideas. And we've tested the market. We've talked to people, customers, and the customers too, there's some of them are really nice. They said, look, if you build it, it'll be really great. And then you know how it always goes, and they fall off the map. Mm-hmm. The first thing you need to do is find a wedge. And I'll tell you how we found ours. But what is the wedge? I mean, some people know. But the wedge is like the one competitive differentiator that could cut through the competition, and you're really good at that one thing. And that could be, for example, you enter an old established market with brand new technology. And right now, for example, legal, is being completely thrown apart by AI and being able to read documents within seconds and summarization, right? So that's an old business paired with new technology. It's explosive what it can be done, right? So that's one way of doing it. The next one is finding leveraging an existing market and find something that's completely different, either an approach or target customer or persona and so on and so forth. And admittedly, a lot of my pivots were focused in that area because I have this massive, pedigree and observability. So I was looking at what are the observability companies not doing, right? But has big enough moat that we can build it and interest in all the stuff. And the third one is, hey, there's this new bubble, this new market, and pretty much everyone can build something in that space because this completely redefined the way that we work, the way that we interact, and the new technology is completely different. And in all three of these kind of areas, you have different complexities, right? Established market is relationship driven and they don't want to move or change. In the middle, well, you have a lot of competition. If I go into the observability market today, there's just so many competitors, and it's like whoever's got the cheapest product really nowadays, let's be honest. And there's the new market, and the new market has a challenge that, hey, people don't know what it is, how it works, the risks associated to it, the cost, and it's a little bit scary, crazy thing going on with AI, and I don't understand that. So there's pros and cons in every one in the market. And so we tried to go after many of these. And, and so we decided, let's focus on the third one. There's a new interesting technology. What can we build inside it that other people are maybe not thinking about? And the news is everybody's thinking about everything right now. And so we launched this little application called AIMMe. So AIMME e.app or AIMM.me. Both of those will go there. And basically it's an AI maturity model assessment. It's a chat bot. No surprise or nothing revolutionary there. But what's special about AIMMe, as we like to colloquially call her, is that she's designed to be able to ask you certain questions, about a 5-minute questionnaire. So if you go and do it, but she's designed to kind of guide you through some specific objectives and outcomes that allow it to create a really good assessment of where you are in your maturity model for AI. Now, obviously, it was trained on some amazing documentation from Accenture, Deloitte, IBM, who actually build a practice around this. So they go into your organization, spend about a year interviewing people, and then they build a huge document that tells you that you're at step 0. We do it in 5 minutes. But the reason for that was for us to understand what the market needed. So question 1 is like, what did the market need? So we launched it, we advertised it, not super hugely, but we went Google AdWords and all that stuff. And we tried to get people to just use it and see what we get out of it. Well, no surprise, the majority of people are at level 0, right? Mm-hmm. They either experimenting with AI, they are trying some new things, they're doing a lot of stuff in pre-production using Bedrock, Vertex, in GCP, you name it, like OpenAI. Playing around is the theme of here. And so we thought to ourselves, interesting, okay. And then I went to my co-founder and said, hey, how do you know what AIMME is doing right now? And this kind of was a crazy gotcha moment because, he's like, oh, well, here's some dashboards. And then here's what OpenAI shows you. And it kind of became like this, I got slapped in the face with this. Because the reality is we had no idea what AIMME is doing at this moment in time. And when we unpack every single thread through OpenAI or every single thread through, some Datadog or New Relic from operations side of things, we realized it was borderline impossible to figure out what it was doing. Unless you read every single interaction and then you kind of build something. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, why don't you add an AI to do the AI thing? So yeah, you could do that. But the reality is I couldn't answer the fundamental question. What is AIMME doing right now? And how much is it costing me? And is it doing the right things? Because we made it somewhat specific, but then we're like, okay, we need to answer this question. Because this is the question that most businesses today want answered. And we're talking about the non-technical business people who want to do AI, but are too afraid because of security, risk, compliance, and also just lack of understanding. Okay, I'm going to launch this chatbot, or I'm going to use this new technology in my day-to-day, but what is it doing? Why is it doing that? What's the cost? And the majority of people nowadays will answer this question by going to the developer team, right? Or the test team, and they're going to tell you, well, it's going to cost you 1,200 tokens. Okay, what does that mean? And for what path, what interaction? So there was this big gotcha moment that we realized that we needed to figure out what AIMME was doing. And so we started building effectively a flow map of what AIMME's brain is operating like, right? So kind of what steps are being taken, what's going on. And very quickly we realized that 10%, and we got about 100 interactions. We didn't really launch it big, but within the first 2 weeks we had 100 interactions. 10% of those interactions were people trying to prompt inject, prompt hack it. Okay? About 40% were people who were somewhat lost as to what it did, which is a really good indication that we probably need to change the way that we market AIMME and explain what AIMME does, right? There's I think about another 30% of people who just kind of went through a process but fell off. And 10%, i.e. 10 customers, went through the entire process and said, hey, I would like to talk to you. So if you think about AIMME, it started out as a bit of an experiment to kind of figure out what's out there in the market, what other people are doing. It morphed into becoming our pipeline generation component. And then it morphed into being the test bed for the technology we're currently building. So think of it like a flow guard or a observability for Gen AI. Being able to not just tell you which prompts are what are they doing, but in real time show you visually the paths being taken by every single conversations. And if there's deviations from any paths, we can actually show you visually what that is. And in the future iterations would actually help you figure out how to shut them down. Well, imagine like AIMME is running right now and I get a pop-up saying that this one user is really trying to prompt hack it. Let's just shut that interaction down right away. But the real benefit to the business is that all of a sudden I can go to non-technical business owners and say, what is the reason why you're not going to production with your Gen AI investments? And typically is, I don't understand it. It's too risky. I don't know how much it costs. Those are the three questions we want to answer in a way that makes sense to non-technical people. Because ultimately, every single solution that we've seen in the market today is really focused for developers by developers. And we want to change that mentality.
Yeah, and the developers are the ones playing with the new technology at the cutting, bleeding edge.
Correct.
But having that observability into the chatbots, I think, is critical. And that's, like you said, that's the main reason things aren't being launched. And that's the main use case that people are looking at Gen AI for at the moment. It's, oh, I need to have AI because that's the new thing. How quickly can I get AI in my business? Well, let's just slap a chatbot in. But there's been so many cautionary tales online about businesses that have put things out there and then had to turn them off straight away.
Precisely, yeah.
Because it's a chatbot. That opens up the doors now.
And I talked to another customer, so it's not limited to chatbot, right? So Gen AI has so many other cool new use cases. For example, we talk about the legal kind of aspect of it. Well, you can use it to parse documents, make recommendations, and so on and so forth. Now, today, a lot of the conversations are around some really, really complex KPIs of how your Gen AI is working. There's like things like Blue, Rouge. And when I first heard about them, I'm like, what on earth do these metrics? And there's like about 20 of them. IBM published them. Like any AI ML expert out there is going to laugh at my lack of knowledge in this, especially building an AI company. But I'm telling you, this is the same problem that non-technical people are facing. All these KPIs are meaningless. And oftentimes, as I talk to a whole bunch of people, Databricks employees that were kind enough to kind of guide me around what needs to be done, they told me that they're actually not super accurate. So you need to build a lot of stuff to make them accurate, and a lot of knowledge needs to go into place. But then when you go to a business owner, you say, hey, I've got a 10% deviation in my Rouge metric. What does that actually mean? Right? What does that mean? So my thought is like, how can we bring some easily understandable metrics, for example, cognitive load, as an example, that people can understand what it means very simply, and it helps you trust that whatever you're building is good. So in the legal example, right? If, for example, you read all these documents and the output is yet another document, your cognitive load is really high. So number one, you spend a lot of money parsing the document, analyzing all the information, and then your output has high cognitive load, which means that you spend a lot of money to basically be in the right same spot. Now, when you test these things, it's easy to kind of go and test, validate, fix, and all that stuff. But then you go into production, and all of a sudden, a very different type of document that you didn't test for goes into it, and all of a sudden, cognitive load goes really high. And all of a sudden, the lawyer's sitting there, because they're not a technical person, they're like, well, I guess this was supposed to be done. Being able to kind of tell the business that, hey, there is no big deviation from whatever that is. You could probably get those metrics today, but we think that the cognitive load is too high, or I think the cost is going up significantly ever since you moved from ChatGPT 3.0 to 4.0. Now, these seem obvious things to somebody who is really in the market, but is this obvious enough to the business owner who is like investing in getting this technology into their business, who is still kind of concerned about what exactly it's doing? Right? This is the fundamental shift in mentality and thought that we're trying to bring to market. And we're excited to be fairly close to be launching kind of initial prototype. We'd love to talk to customers who can relate to this kind of problem, because we'd like to build it out and actually start showcasing it to a bunch of customers.
Yeah, that's an exciting time in the startup to get to that point where you're ready to get something out there once you've had that validation and feedback.
Yeah, and it works on AIMMe, so it's kind of cool that we right now know somebody's coming in and doing something. We know exactly what they're doing. We know exactly. By the way, it costs $1.50 right now for anybody who tries to hack AIMMe. So not a lot of cost, but AIMMe is a little, it's a little experiment of ours. Imagine if you are a big corporation using it as for support tickets, as an example. And somebody spent an hour trying to reverse engineer it. Like, you want to know about that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, and then at scale, that $1.50 does add up.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
Precisely.
So what's next on the horizon for yourself and your co-founder? Is there a 10th pivot, or do you think this is the direction you'll be going in for a while?
We've been talking to enough. Look, I'd love to be talking to some more customers too, but the 4 or 5 customers we talked to so far, they really are bought into this idea because, again, what we're doing is completely different in the market, number one. And the access that we're giving to businesses gives them the trust and validation that, hey, I now know what it's doing, right? And so we're getting some traction there. I'd like to get a little bit more traction. I think we're pretty ready to go and talk to some VCs about, helping us go quicker. Our prototype works really well, but it's rough around the edges. I reckon it could become a little bit better with a designer. We also have a pretty bold, underlying infrastructure that we want to build out. So we kind of need somebody to help us, the CTO part. We need someone to kind of build out a lot of that stuff. So we're trying to scale pretty quickly. So if anybody in this podcast is somebody who's just interested about this, I'd love to talk to you. If there's any VCs, I want to talk to you. But even if it's somebody who's just generally curious about why we're thinking of it this way, I'm pretty keen to do that. So the next few months, we're going to go really hard at launching this. So look out for something coming. It's still stealth. It's either going to be called Flow Guard, or there's a couple of other things we're kind of thinking about to give it that really easy to understand what we're trying to do. But look out for us. We're coming.
Oh, it's good. It's exciting times ahead, and hopefully someone can reach out. So if someone does want to reach out, what's the best way for them to do that?
Right now, just go to AIMME.app. On the very bottom link, you'll have both of our names. And if you want to try out our AIMME little app, go for it. You'll find she's got character.
Well, yeah, I've gone through it. It literally takes 5 minutes to go through and answer the questions, and you get a good idea of, all right, we're not a zero, which is good.
Yeah, you guys
We've got some structures in place. We're at a different spot, being very technical and driving AI in our products and for clients. So, but it would be a good tool for, say, the non-technical, just understand, we are dabbling in this a little bit, or we've got team members that are doing stuff, but where do we really stand?
Correct. Yeah. It's super easy to do, and it gives you a flavor of, hey, I'd love to know what it's doing in the background.
Yep. Well, thanks, Mick. It's been a pleasure to chat to you, and thank you once again.
Thanks for having me, Anthony. Really, really a pleasure.
Not a problem.